The shadows of the ancient world are whispering a secret that was never meant to be unearthed. Imagine a child born not of mere flesh, but of blinding light, skin like snow, eyes like burning suns, and words of divine prophecy spilling from infant lips. This is the moment Lamech faced a terrifying truth. His son Noah was unlike any human ever born. Was he a miracle or a warning of the cataclysmic flood about to erase humanity? Today, we dive deep into the forbidden Book of Enoch to reveal the celestial conspiracy that changed our destiny forever. From fallen angels teaching forbidden sorcery to the hidden mechanisms of the heavens themselves, we are uncovering the truth the world forgot. You are watching Bible Mysteries Africa, where the ancient sands reveal the ultimate secrets of the soul. If you are ready to witness the revelations that stayed hidden for millennia, hit that subscribe button right now. Smash the like button to spread this light, and share this video with those who seek the truth. Stay tuned, because what you're about to see will challenge everything you thought you knew about the dawn of man. Welcome to Bible Mysteries Africa. Before we begin this journey into the deepest secrets of our ancestry, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you never miss a revelation from the Word of God. My brothers and sisters in Nigeria and across this great continent, have you ever looked at the world today and felt a deep, trembling unrest in your spirit? Have you ever wondered if the chaos we see is a sign that the ancient mysteries of the heavens are finally being unveiled? Today we are going deep into a story that will shake your foundation and ignite your faith. We are talking about a time when the supernatural touched the earth in a way that terrified even the holiest of men. Imagine the shock, the awe, and the holy fear of Lamech when his wife gave birth to a son who did not look like any man on this earth. A child whose skin shone like the purest snow, whose eyes were like the sun itself, and whose first breath was not a cry, but a powerful blessing to the Almighty. Was this child a man, or was he something more? Why did his father flee in terror? And what does the legendary Enoch, who walked with God, have to say to us in this hour about the forbidden knowledge that almost destroyed humanity? Stay with us until the very end, because this story isn't just about the past. It is a powerful message of hope, righteousness, and survival for every Nigerian family facing the storms of life today. If you are ready to receive this blessing, smash that like button and share this video with someone who needs to be encouraged by the power of God. Now, let us open the scrolls of history together. In those ancient days, Methuselah, the son of Enoch, took a wife for his son Lamech, and the time came for the promise of life to be fulfilled as she gave birth to a son who was truly a wonder to behold. This child was unlike any other ever born to the daughters of men. His skin was as white as the freshest snow, yet it carried a flush of red like the most vibrant rose in bloom. His hair was long and white as the finest wool, falling in soft heavenly waves, and when he opened his radiant eyes, a light so powerful poured from them that it illuminated the entire house, filling every corner with a brightness that rivaled the midday sun. In that miraculous moment, the infant rose in the arms of the midwife and, guided by a divine power, opened his mouth to speak words of blessing and praise to the Lord of righteousness. But Lamech, seeing the supernatural glory of his own son, was struck with a terrifying fear that gripped his heart. Overcome by this dread, he fled from his home and ran in haste to his father, Methuselah, crying out that he had brought forth a strange son, a child who bore the likeness of the sons of the God of heaven, rather than the nature of men. He feared that this child was not of his own blood, but born of the angels, and that through him great and terrible wonders would soon unfold upon the earth. Trembling, Lamech pleaded with Methuselah to seek out their ancestor Enoch, who dwelt among the angels and held the keys to the truth. Methuselah, hearing his son's desperate cry, journeyed to the very ends of the earth to find Enoch, calling out to him until the great prophet appeared. Methuselah confessed his deep anxiety and described the child's solar brilliance and his immediate praise of the Lord of heaven. Enoch listened with a heavy, solemn heart and revealed that the Lord was indeed about to do a new thing, for he had seen in a vision that in the days of his own father Jared, certain angels had transgressed the divine command, taking human wives and birthing a race of giants that filled the world with sin. Enoch prophesied that a great destruction, a flood lasting an entire year, would soon sweep across the earth to cleanse it of all impurity. But he comforted Methuselah with the news that this miraculous child, who was indeed Lamech's true son, would be spared. Enoch commanded that the boy be named Noah, for he would be the one to bring comfort and survival to his family when the rest of mankind perished in the coming judgment. He warned that even after the cleansing flood, wickedness would eventually return, yet he promised that a generation of righteousness would one day arise to destroy all sin forever. Methuselah returned with this divine message, and Lamech's fear turned to hope as he named his son Noah. As the years passed, Noah himself began to see the earth groaning under the weight of its own corruption. He felt the ground sinking beneath his feet and knew the end was near. In his sorrow, Noah cried out 3 times, "Hear me, hear me, hear me," calling for the wisdom of Enoch as the earth began to quake violently. In the midst of a great upheaval, Enoch appeared in radiant glory and revealed that the Lord had decreed ruin for those who had stolen the forbidden secrets of the angels, the sorcery, the witchcraft, and the dark arts of war and molten images that had cursed the land. Enoch showed Noah how the sinners had tapped into powers they were never meant to possess, leading to an irreversible judgment. Yet Enoch took Noah's hand and assured him that because he was pure and untouched by this darkness, the Lord of Spirits had chosen his name to be preserved among the holy. Noah was shown the angels of punishment ready to release the deep waters of the earth, but he was also given a promise of a royal and righteous seed that would emerge from his line to bless the world for all time. God's voice, like thunder tempered with love, spoke directly to Noah, confirming that he was blameless and that the angels were already preparing a great wooden vessel to carry the seed of life through the storm. While the fallen ones were condemned to a burning valley of fire and sulfur, Noah was promised that his descendants would be fruitful and multiply in an abundance that would never end. This sacred legacy, passed from Enoch to Noah, serves as a timeless testimony that even when the world falls into deep darkness and the judgment of fire and ice approaches, those who walk in righteousness and keep their hearts pure before the Lord of Spirits will always find a sanctuary of peace and a fountain of eternal blessing. Thank you for watching Bible Mysteries Africa. May the light of Noah's blessing shine upon your house today and forever. Welcome to Bible Mysteries Africa. My dear brothers and sisters in Nigeria and all across this vibrant continent, I want you to listen with your spirit today, for we are standing at the edge of a divine revelation that will set your soul on fire. Before we proceed, do not forget to hit that subscribe button and join our family as we uncover the deep things of the Almighty. Today, we are witnessing the moment when the mercy of God meets his righteous fury. We are looking at a time when the heavens were heavy with judgment, yet a path was carved for the faithful. Imagine, if you will, the scene. The angels of punishment stood at the ready, their hands on the floodgates of the deep, prepared to unleash a destruction that would swallow the very mountains. But the Lord of Spirits, in his infinite sovereignty, held them back. He commanded the waters to remain in check, because the hour of destiny had not yet fully arrived. And so, our forefather Noah departed from the presence of his grandfather Enoch, carrying a weight on his shoulders that no ordinary man could bear, the terrifying and holy knowledge of what was to come. In the quiet days that followed, the atmosphere changed. The air grew thick with the presence of the Creator, and suddenly, the word of God came to Noah. It was a voice that shook the foundations of the earth like 1,000 thunders, yet it was tender, wrapped in a love that only a father can provide. The Almighty spoke, saying, "Noah, your fate has come before me, and I have found you blameless, pure, and filled with a heart of righteousness." Can you imagine the peace that filled Noah's heart? God revealed that even as the world spiraled into darkness, the angels were already at work, building a great wooden structure, a vessel of salvation. God promised that once the task was complete, his own hand would bless it, and from this sanctuary, the seed of life would emerge to renew the face of the earth. His promise was firm and unshakable. Your descendants shall be established forever. They will not walk in desolation but in abundance. They will be fruitful, they will multiply, and my blessing shall rest upon them from generation to generation. This, my people, is the reward for those who remain faithful in a crooked world. But while there was a promise for the righteous, there was a terrifying decree for the rebellious. God spoke of the fallen angels, those who had traded their heavenly glory for the impurities of the earth. He declared that they would be cast into the burning valley, a place situated in the west among mountains rich with gold, silver, and soft metals. Noah saw this vision with crystal clarity, a valley of convulsing fire and molten metal, where a stench of sulfur rose to the heavens. This was the place of eternal punishment for those who had led mankind astray. But here is a mystery. The waters of this valley served a dual purpose. For the kings and the proud rulers of the earth, the waters would bring a temporary healing to their bodies, soothing their flesh, while their spirits remained in torment because they had denied the Lord of Spirits. They would see their punishment daily and yet refuse to repent. Their fate was sealed because they chose the desires of the flesh over the Spirit of the Lord. As the judgment progressed, even these waters would transform, the fiery streams would turn to ice, and the springs of healing would become bitter, a testimony that the fire of God's justice is unquenchable and his judgment is final. In the aftermath of this heavy revelation, the revered Enoch bestowed upon Noah the sacred teachings inscribed in the Book of Parables, offering them like a priceless heirloom of divine wisdom. The archangels Michael and Raphael stood in awe of the severity of God's justice. Michael's voice was laden with dread as he asked, "Who can endure such a fierce judgment? How can any heart remain unshaken by the decree against those who led the earth astray?" Michael declared with unyielding resolve that he would not advocate for these fallen ones, for they had usurped the authority of the Lord. Their secret sins were laid bare, and their names were etched in infamy. Names like Samjazzar, Azazel, and Jekon, the leaders who brought forbidden knowledge and corruption to the sons of men. They taught the arts of war, the creation of weapons, and the invention of writing used for deception. They unveiled the strikes of demons and the secrets of sorcery that tormented both spirit and body. But amidst this darkness, Enoch revealed the most powerful secret of all, the sacred oath. This was the oath entrusted to Michael, the very power used to establish the heavens before the world was made, and to found the earth upon the waters. By this oath, the sun and moon keep their courses, the stars complete their cycles, and the elements of nature give thanks to the Lord of Spirits. It is a bond that preserves all creation from corruption, and through this same power, the Son of Man was revealed, sitting upon the throne of glory to purge the earth of all sinners. My brothers and sisters, this is the victory we claim today. The same God who held back the waters for Noah is the God who holds your life in his hands. If you believe in the power of the Lord of Spirits, if you are ready to walk in righteousness and claim the abundance promised to Noah's seed, then type Amen in the comments. Share this word of power with your neighbors, and let the light of Bible Mysteries Africa guide you through the storm. Stay blessed, stay pure, and remember, the Lord always prepares a way for his righteous ones. The primordial earth was founded upon the depths of the waters, secured by an ancient and immutable power that defies human comprehension. From the secret, hidden recesses of the towering mountains, beautiful springs of life emerged, flowing according to a divine rhythm. The vast seas were set within their boundaries, fixed by a decree they dare not transgress, standing as a testament to the order of the cosmos. Every depth was secured, and the sun and the moon were commanded to keep their precise courses, while the stars completed their majestic cycles in the velvet sky, all governed by the sovereign power of the great oath. This was no mere promise, it was the structural vibration of the universe itself. Even the spirits of the water, the shifting winds, and all the elemental forces of nature were bound by its authority, their paths meticulously preserved from the touch of corruption. The voice of the rolling thunder, the blinding light of the lightning, the frozen chambers of the hail, and the crystalline frost all exist in a state of perpetual worship. These elements of weather, which man often fears, give thanks and glorify the Lord of Spirits eternally, for their very existence and consistency are preserved by this holy oath. Great joy fills the hearts of the heavenly hosts as they bless and extol the name of the Son of Man, the chosen one who has been revealed in the fullness of time and now sits upon the throne of radiant glory. The authority of all judgment has been handed to him. It is he who will purge the stained earth of all sinners, binding the rebellious with unbreakable chains and casting them into the place of final destruction. In his presence, the deeds of the wicked shall vanish like smoke, and from this momentous point forward, corruption shall have no place in the kingdom of the Almighty. The Son of Man, having taken his rightful throne, will banish every shadow of evil, and his word shall stand strong, potent, and undeniable before the Lord of Spirits for all eternity. It was during this era of earthly life that Enoch's name was exalted, raised to the heights of celestial attention, surpassing every soul that dwelt upon the face of the earth. In a grand and breathtaking celestial ascent, he was lifted upon the chariots of the Spirit, rising beyond the clouds until his name gradually faded from the mortal realm. Enoch was no longer counted among the living men of the dust. Instead, he was placed in the sacred space between the two great winds, the north and the west, where the angels meticulously measured the eternal domain allotted for the elect and the righteous. In that hallowed space, Enoch beheld the ancient patriarchs and the righteous ones who had resided in that exalted realm since the very dawn of creation. After this momentous transition, Enoch's spirit was transported even higher into the heavens, ascending into the most divine realms of light. There he beheld the holy sons of God, walking upon paths made of living fire. Their garments gleamed with a whiteness that no earthly fuller could achieve, and their faces radiated with a brilliance akin to freshly fallen snow under a bright sun. He saw two roaring streams of fire, their light glowing with the deep, mysterious hue of hyacinth. Overwhelmed by the sheer majesty and the crushing weight of the divine presence, Enoch fell prostrate before the Lord of Spirits, his soul trembling in awe. It was then that the archangel Michael, one of the most exalted princes of heaven, took Enoch by his right hand, lifting him gently from the ground and guiding him through the deepest mysteries of the divine. Michael revealed to him the hidden secrets of righteousness and the ultimate foundational truths of the cosmos. Enoch was shown the furthest reaches of heaven, the hidden chambers where the stars are stored, and the intricate pathways of the luminaries, all proceeding in perfect divine order before the eyes of the holy ones. Then Enoch's spirit was translated into the heaven of heavens, the innermost sanctuary of the Creator. There he beheld a magnificent structure composed of crystal-clear substances that seemed to vibrate with life. Within this celestial edifice, tongues of living fire danced and flickered between walls of pure crystal. He witnessed a girdle of fire encircling this house, with 4 streams of living fire flowing from all sides. Around the throne of divine glory stood the seraphim, the cherubim, and the ophanim, those celestial beings of fire and spirit, who neither slumber nor rest, keeping a vigilant eternal guard. Enoch saw an innumerable host of angels, thousands upon thousands, and 10,000 times 10,000, a sea of light encircling the divine house. Moving in and out of that sacred space were the highest princes, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Phanuel. From the very heart of that celestial abode emerged the head of days, his head radiant and pure as white wool, his attire so glorious it was beyond any human description. Overwhelmed by the sight, Enoch fell on his face once more, his entire body slackening as his spirit underwent a total transformation. In a state of divine ecstasy, he cried out with a voice imbued with the spirit of power, blessing, glorifying, and extolling the Lord of Spirits. These blessings, flowing from a heart moved by the Spirit, were received with great favor by the head of days, the Almighty, accompanied by the great archangels and a multitude of heavenly hosts, approached Enoch. In a voice filled with deep reverence, the angel spoke a word that changed Enoch forever. Behold the Son of Man, born unto righteousness. Righteousness envelops him, and the righteousness of the head of days shall never depart from him. The angel continued, bringing a message of peace that had emanated from the very creation of the world, a peace destined to endure forever. Enoch was told to walk in the ways of the Son of Man, for in his presence the righteous find their eternal dwelling and heritage, united with him for all time. Thus the Son of Man enjoys length of days, and the righteous walk in a path of integrity, sheltered by the name of the Lord of Spirits forever and ever. Enoch then continued to unveil the divine knowledge granted to him regarding the celestial bodies. Under the guidance of Uriel, the holy angel of light, he was shown the intricate clockwork mechanisms of the heavens. Uriel disclosed the precise laws governing the sun, the moon, and the stars, illustrating how each luminary follows a path designated by the Creator according to their orders, dominions, and seasons. These laws were set to remain in place until the dawn of the new creation. Uriel explained the first law of the luminaries. The sun rises from the 6 eastern portals and sets in the 6 western portals of heaven. Each portal contains 12 window openings that emit flames and warmth at the appropriate season. For 30 mornings, the sun rises through the 4th portal, gradually extending the daylight and shortening the night in a perfect mathematical progression. As the sun transitions through the 5th and 6th portals, the days lengthen until the daylight doubles the night, marking the height of the season. The pattern then reverses as the sun returns through the portals to balance the year, ensuring that the day and night eventually become equal. This cycle completes a year of 364 days, a number recorded in the heavenly tablets for all eternity. Uriel also showed Enoch the laws of the moon, the smaller luminary, whose light is granted in precise 14th parts. The moon grows until its 15th day of fullness, and then wanes in a consistent, repeating sequence that measures the months and maintains the order of time. Uriel demonstrated that every star and every planet obeys the commands of the Lord of Glory, ruling over the earth to provide warmth, light, and the cycles of prosperity and desolation. From the 12 portals at the edges of the earth, the winds flow, some bringing blessings of rain and fertility, others carrying the drought of judgment. The laws of the heavens were unveiled before my eyes, Enoch declared with profound awe, and I saw how every force of nature moves with perfect precision, maintaining the delicate and holy harmony of all creation. As the celestial clock continued its tireless rotation, the sun reached the height of its journey, only to begin its inevitable descent to balance the scales of time. After reaching the peak of daylight, the great luminary returned to the 6th portal in the east, completing another 30 mornings. During this transition, the days began to shorten, diminishing by 1 part until the light spanned 11 parts and the night grew to 7. The seasons shifted as the sun departed the 6th portal in the west, traveling back toward the 5th portal in the east. For 30 mornings it rose and set with mathematical certainty, decreasing the day's length by 2 more parts until the light occupied 10 parts and the night claimed 8. The sun continued this unwavering pattern, transitioning into the 4th portal for 31 mornings. It was in this sacred alignment that the day and the night became perfectly equal, each consisting of exactly 9 parts, bringing a momentary harmony to the world. However, the descent into the deeper shadows continued. The sun proceeded to the 3rd portal, rising and setting for 30 mornings as the night grew progressively longer than the day. By the 30th morning, the night spanned 10 parts while the day withered to 8. Moving then to the 2nd portal for another 30 mornings, the darkness intensified, claiming 11 parts of the cycle while the day was shortened to a mere 7. Finally, the sun entered the 1st portal for 31 mornings, marking the time of the great winter. Here the night reached its longest and most formidable duration, becoming double the length of the day. On this darkest day, the night comprised 12 parts and the day only 6. Having completed this deep orbit, the sun began its return journey, traversing its divisions and setting in the west opposite the portal of its rising. Slowly, the night began to decrease by 1/9, returning to 11 parts with the day at 7. Re-entering the 2nd portal in the east for 30 mornings, the sun caused the night to shorten further to 10 parts while the day extended to 8. Eventually, it returned once more to the 3rd portal for 31 mornings, where day and night were again balanced at 9 parts each. Thus the heavenly cycle was completed, a year totaling 364 days, recorded by the angels as the blueprint of time. Uriel, the holy messenger, also revealed to Enoch the complex laws governing the moon, the smaller luminary that rules the night. The moon's circumference, mirroring the vast expanse of the heavens, is driven by the celestial winds, and its light is granted in a precise and sacred measure. Uriel explained that the moon begins its cycle rising with a 14th part of its light, growing steadily with each passing night until the 15th day, when it stands fully illuminated, a silver mirror in the darkness. After reaching this fullness, it begins its waning phase, reducing its light in a precise diminishing sequence. This pattern repeats with absolute consistency, its cycle meticulously aligned with the movements of the sun. In this way, the movements of the moon ensure that the years are accurately measured, maintaining the delicate balance and divine order of time across the generations. Enoch beheld the positions of all celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and the countless stars, each following a fixed and unchangeable path. They move not by chance, but in obedience to the commands set by the Lord of Glory, who established them as the rulers over the heavens and the earth. Uriel further explained the significance of the 12 portals located around the sun's chariot. From these portals, rays of sunlight emerge to provide the vital warmth necessary for the earth to bring forth life. He revealed the hidden portals from which the winds and the dew flow, explaining how these invisible forces control the daily and seasonal cycles of the world. There are 12 portals in total, used by the celestial luminaries to maintain the natural order of the cosmos. Through these openings, the balance between light and darkness, warmth and cold, and prosperity and desolation is sustained according to the Creator's master design. Finally, Uriel demonstrated the workings of the winds that emerge from the 12 portals at the very edges of the earth. These winds are the breath of judgment and blessing. They bring vastly different outcomes depending on their source. The east wind at times carries drought and scorching heat that withers the crops, while another wind from the same direction brings the gift of rain and fertility. The north winds deliver the bite of cold and the blanket of snow, while the winds from the west bring mixed conditions to the land. Enoch stood in awe as the laws of the heavens were unveiled before his eyes. He saw with divine clarity how every star, every planet, and every force of nature moves with perfect precision, following the path assigned to them and maintaining the delicate harmony of all creation. In those days of profound revelation, Uriel spoke with gravity, warning Enoch of a shadow looming over the future of mankind. He declared that a time would come when the hearts of men would turn cold, and because of their wickedness, the very years would be shortened. The earth itself would begin to grieve. The fields and lands that once teemed with life would falter, and the seeds sown by human hands would delay their growth, refusing to sprout in their appointed seasons. All things dwelling upon the face of the earth would be altered, and the natural times would vanish. The rain, once a gift from the heavens, would be withheld, and the skies would close themselves in a heavy, judgmental silence. As the angel's voice echoed through the winds of prophecy, the sorrow of the earth became even more vivid. Uriel foretold that the fruits of the trees would wither and arrive late, if they appeared at all. The cycles of abundance would be broken, and even the moon, once faithful in her course, would forsake her path and fail to appear at her appointed time. He lifted his gaze to the firmament and warned that the sun would journey toward the edge of the great western chariot and shine with a fierce, unnatural intensity, breaking the sacred order of light. The chiefs of the stars would forsake their duties, wandering disobediently and failing to appear in their seasons. This sacred order, hidden from the eyes of the sinful, would become a lost mystery. Men would look to the stars with confusion, erring in their thoughts and falling into the ultimate folly, worshipping the stars as gods rather than the Creator who fashioned them. The tone of the revelation grew dark as Uriel described the multiplication of evil, spreading like a plague across humanity. He warned that with this rising tide of sin would come a swift and terrible punishment, a divine intervention so mighty it would destroy all who persisted in their wickedness. As Uriel concluded these dire warnings, the silence that followed was heavy with foreboding. Yet, in another moment of divine grace, the angel called Enoch to gaze upon the heavenly tablets. He was commanded to read what was inscribed upon them and to take heed of every detail, for this was the wisdom intended for his understanding. With deep reverence, Enoch observed the tablets and read the inscriptions written by the hand of the Almighty himself. Within those celestial records were contained all the deeds of mankind, a complete history of every soul from the beginning of the earth until the remotest generations yet to come. His heart was moved to worship, and he blessed the Lord, the eternal King of glory, for his wondrous works and his unending patience with the children of men. Enoch declared that the man who dies in righteousness is truly blessed, for in the records of heaven no day of judgment shall be found against him. All these truths were then entrusted to Enoch, to be carried back to his kin as a final testimony before his time on earth was drawn to a close. In those celestial moments of divine clarity, Enoch stood before the heavenly tablets, those eternal records that contained the intricate tapestry of all human deeds. Within their shimmering inscriptions was the complete history of mankind, stretching from the very breath of creation at the dawn of the earth, until the most distant and remotest generations yet to walk the sands of time. As Enoch read and fully comprehended the staggering vastness of this history, with all its triumphs and tragedies, his heart was profoundly moved to its depths. He bowed his head and blessed the great Lord, the eternal King of glory, for all his wondrous and mysterious works that spanned the ages. His lips, touched by the fire of revelation, spoke incessant praises for the Lord's unending patience with a rebellious world, and he blessed the Almighty for his boundless mercy toward the children of men, filled with a wisdom that surpassed mortal thought. Enoch declared with solemn joy that the man who dies in righteousness and goodness is truly blessed, for in the heavenly archives there is no record of wrongdoing found against him. In the name of such a man, the terrifying day of judgment shall never find a foothold, for his soul is anchored in the light of the Creator. When these staggering revelations had been made known to Enoch, the 7 holy ones who had served as his celestial guides began the process of returning him to his earthly abode. They descended with him, standing before the humble door of his own house, and spoke with voices that carried the weight of the heavens. They commanded him, saying that he must now declare these hidden truths to his son Methuselah and to all his children, for the time of secrecy had passed. He was tasked to show them the fundamental truth that no flesh is inherently righteous before the piercing eyes of the Lord, for he is the absolute creator of all things, the singular source of all life, and to him alone is the final authority of judgment reserved. The angelic voices, resonant with both gravity and grace, continued to reveal the unfolding plan for Enoch's own life. They informed him that he had been granted but 1 more year to dwell among his kin in the mortal realm. This precious time was given so that he might offer his final commands, teach his children the ways of the Spirit, and write down every vision he had seen to serve as a testimony for the generations that would arise long after he was gone. The angels foretold that in the 2nd year they would return to take him from the midst of men, translating him into a realm beyond the reach of death. Uriel's words were a powerful mixture of warning and hope as he urged Enoch to be strong in heart. He explained that the righteous would always proclaim righteousness to their brothers, and those who walk the path of goodness would find a reason to rejoice together, offering blessings to one another as a shield against the dark. However, a darker fate awaited those who chose the path of rebellion. The sinners would perish alongside the sinners, and the apostates would fall into the bottomless abyss with those who had willfully abandoned the truth. Yet a promise of mercy remained. The righteous, though they might endure suffering due to the wicked deeds of men, would eventually be taken away by the hand of God to escape the treacherous and destructive ways of the godless. When the angels had finished delivering this divine mandate, their voices fell into a sacred silence, and Enoch returned to his people, his heart overflowing with a song of praise for the Lord of all creation. In the days that followed his return, Enoch gathered his household and spoke to his son Methuselah with an urgency born of heaven. He recounted every fragment of the knowledge he had been given and meticulously wrote down every detail, ensuring that the wisdom of the angels was captured in ink and parchment. He urged Methuselah with great passion to preserve these books as a sacred trust and to pass them down through the lineages of time, so that this wisdom, which far surpassed the limited understanding of men, might be known throughout all ages. Enoch spoke with a heavy, solemn dignity, telling his son that he had provided a treasure of wisdom not just for him, but for all his descendants. He cautioned that those who truly understand these mysteries must remain vigilant, never allowing their spirits to fall into a slumber of indifference, but instead listening and learning with eager, hungry hearts. To those who seek the Spirit, he promised that this wisdom would be more satisfying and sustaining than the finest of foods. He extended his blessing over all the righteous, declaring that those who walk in the way of integrity and do not stumble into the sins of the world are favored by the Almighty. In the divine reckoning of their days, Enoch explained how the physical world itself was a mirror of God's order. He described how the sun moved steadily through the portals of the sky, accompanied by the leaders of the stars, marking the months with 30 days each. Yet, he revealed a mystery that would baffle future generations. There were 4 extra days interspersed throughout the year, sacred markers that signaled the divisions between the seasons. He warned that because these days were hidden in the transition of the cycles, mankind would struggle to account for them correctly, leading to confusion and the miscalculation of time. Nevertheless, the sun's journey was fixed, completing the year in exactly 364 days, a number precise and recorded for all eternity in the courts of heaven. Uriel, the holy angel with dominion over the celestial hosts, had revealed these mysteries of the luminaries, the festivals and the passing years to Enoch. Under Uriel's authority, the night and day were held in balance, and the stars spun endlessly in their heavenly chariots. Enoch learned that there was a perfect order to the stars, each one placed in its specific season and aligned with the sacred festivals. He was given the names of the 4 powerful beings who governed the 4 divisions of the year: Milkiel, Helamelech, Melejael, and Narel. Beneath them, 12 other leaders directed the stars through each month, ensuring that the seasons progressed with a harmony that reflected the Creator's intent. At the start of each year, the leader Melchijal, also known as Tamini, would rise first to govern the sun's rule for 91 days. During his reign, the earth would be marked by the warmth of the sun and calm, clear skies. The trees would burst into life, bearing fruit and unfurling their leaves, while the fields blossomed with the promise of harvest. Under Melchijal's guidance, other leaders like Berkiel and Zelebsel ensured the earth was full of beauty. But as his dominion ended, the sun would pass to Helamelech, the shining sun, whose reign also spanned 91 days. This was a time of intense heat and dryness, a season where the fruits ripened into heavy sweet bounty, and the sheep carried their young. The fields were gathered in preparation for the winepress, all under the watchful eyes of leaders like Gidaljal and Asphael. This cycle continued, unbroken and majestic, as ordained by the Creator himself. Then, turning to his son with a gaze that seemed to pierce the veil of time, Enoch said, "And now, Methuselah, my son, listen closely, for I will share with you the visions that have weighed heavy upon my spirit." He recounted 2 great visions he received before he had even taken a wife. The first came when he was a youth, still learning the art of writing, but the second was a far more terrible revelation that occurred before his marriage to Edna. In this second, more dreadful sight, Enoch saw the heavens themselves collapse. The very firmament above the world was torn away, plunging toward the earth with a force that defied description. As he watched in horror from his sleep in the house of his grandfather Mahalalel, the ground opened into a vast, screaming abyss. Mountains were hurled upon one another, and hills sank into the crushing depths. The ancient great trees were ripped from their foundations and cast into the darkness as if they were mere twigs. From the depths of Enoch's soul a cry arose that he could not contain. He shouted with a voice of lamentation, "The earth is destroyed." His grandfather Mahalalel, awakened by the sheer agony in Enoch's voice, rushed to his side with great concern, asking why he wailed with such sorrow. Enoch told him every dreadful detail of the vision, and as he spoke, his grandfather's face grew grave and pale. Mahalalel recognized that the vision was a revelation of the world's hidden sin, a weight so heavy it would eventually drag the entire creation into the abyss of destruction. He urged Enoch to rise and petition the Lord of Glory, praying that a remnant might be spared, for the destruction from the heavens was certain, and the earth was destined to be consumed by the consequences of its own iniquity. Welcome to Bible Mysteries Africa, my dear brothers and sisters in Nigeria and all across this glorious continent. I want you to open your hearts and your spirits today, for we are touching upon a revelation that explains the very state of the world we live in. If you want to know the secrets that were kept from the wise and prudent but revealed unto the humble, then you are in the right place. Before we go deep into the ancient visions of Enoch, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and join our growing family of truth seekers. Smash that like button right now if you believe that God still speaks to his children in dreams and visions. Listen closely, because what was revealed to Enoch is a mirror of the struggle we face today. His grandfather Mahalalel's face grew grave, the lines of his age deepening as he absorbed the weight of the vision. He looked at Enoch and spoke with a voice that carried the heavy burden of prophecy. What you have seen, my son, is a terrible truth that the world is not yet ready to hear. Your dream vision has uncovered the hidden, festering secrets of the world's sin. The sheer weight of this iniquity is so heavy that it will eventually drag the entire earth into the dark abyss. A mighty destruction is coming, one that will cleanse the land of the wickedness that has taken root. Mahalalel's eyes burned with a holy urgency as he grabbed Enoch's shoulders and pleaded, "Now rise, rise, my son, and petition the Lord of glory. You are faithful in his sight, and your prayers carry weight in the courts of heaven. Pray that the Almighty might leave a remnant, a seed of hope upon the earth, so that he does not utterly wipe out all of creation in his righteous anger." Enoch's heart trembled at these words, feeling the crushing responsibility of an intercessor. Mahalalel continued, "For from the highest heavens this destruction will come, and the earth will be consumed by the fire of his justice." Filled with a divine mission, Enoch arose and prayed with every fiber of his being. He implored and beseeched the Lord of Spirits to have mercy on the work of his hands. He wrote down this prayer, not just for himself, but as a legacy for the generations yet to come for us. He promised his son Methuselah that he would reveal everything so that the gravity of the coming judgment would never be forgotten. After his prayer, Enoch stepped outside and looked up at the vast expanse of the sky. He saw the sun rising in the east, painting the horizon with its golden light. Just as it had since the first day of creation, the moon was quietly setting in the west, and a few lingering stars still watched over the fading night. Despite the terrifying vision, the earth still moved in the perfect rhythmic order set by the Creator. Enoch blessed the Lord, the God of judgment, praising him for his marvelous works. For he is the one who ordained the sun to travel its path, and the seasons to follow their course. With hands lifted high toward the heavens, Enoch praised the Holy and Great One. Using the breath given by the Lord and the tongue of flesh created for the sons of men, he declared, "Blessed art thou, O Lord, King of kings. Thy power is great and mighty, and thy greatness endures forever. Thou art the Lord of all creation. The heavens are thy throne, and the earth is thy footstool forevermore. All dominion and power belong to thee, for throughout all generations thy reign remains unshakable." He continued his exaltation, acknowledging that nothing is too difficult for the Lord. From his throne, wisdom flows like an unceasing river, and from his presence no secret can escape. But as Enoch prayed, his heart began to ache with a deep sorrow. He knew that the corruption had reached even the heavenly hosts. The angels themselves had trespassed against the Lord's command, and because of this, God's wrath would remain upon the flesh of men until the day of the great judgment. He cried out, "O God, O great King, hear the cry of thy servant. Leave me a posterity. Do not let the world become a barren wasteland without inhabitants. Let thy wrath fall upon the wicked who have chosen darkness, but let the righteous be as a seed planted in eternity, preserved by your grace." Then a second vision, even more profound and symbolic, was given to Enoch. He told Methuselah, "Listen carefully, my son, to the dream vision of your father. Before I took your mother, Edna, as my wife, I saw a great white bull emerging from the earth, pure and majestic. Following it came a heifer, and then two more bulls, one black and one red. I watched as the black bull gored the red one and chased him across the earth until he vanished. The black bull grew in size and power, and from him and the heifer many dark oxen were born. The first heifer searched for the red bull with bitter tears, but found no comfort until the white bull returned to her. She then bore another white bull, and from him many more white bulls emerged, growing stronger and more numerous than all the others. As Enoch slept, the vision shifted to the heavens. He saw a star fall from the sky, descending to mingle with the oxen, grazing alongside them. Then, many more stars fell, converging upon that first fallen star. These stars transformed into bulls with strange horse-like nature, and they covered the cows of the oxen. From this unholy union, monstrous creatures were born: elephants, camels, and asses. Terror gripped the original oxen as these monsters began to bite, devour, and gore one another with their horns. The very earth groaned and trembled at this perversion of nature. Suddenly, beings like white men emerged from the celestial realm. They took Enoch by the hand, lifting him far above the earthly generations to a high and lofty place. They showed him a towering structure that overlooked the entire world. One of the beings commanded him to stay and watch the fate of the oxen, the stars, and the monstrous creatures. Enoch watched as one of the heavenly beings seized the original fallen star, binding it hand and foot and casting it into a deep, dreadful abyss. Another being handed a sword to the elephants, camels, and asses, and they began to slaughter each other until the ground shook with the intensity of their war. Stones were hurled from heaven, and the stars that had corrupted the earth were bound and cast into the same abyss, left helpless and confined. Then, a profound secret was revealed to the white bull. He transformed into a man and began to construct a magnificent, massive vessel. Alongside him, 3 other bulls took refuge within this shield. Enoch looked up and saw a towering roof in the heavens, from which 7 torrents of water began to pour. Fountains erupted from the floor of the world, and the water rose, swelling higher and higher, until the entire enclosure was submerged. Darkness and mist covered the face of the deep. All the cattle that had remained outside were swallowed by the rising tide and perished. But the vessel, my friends, the vessel remained afloat when the torrents finally receded and the earth became visible once again. The white bull, now a man, emerged with the 3 who were with him. One was white, one was blood red, and one was black. From them, the earth would be replenished. Brothers and sisters, this is the story of our survival and the power of righteousness. If this word has touched your heart today, if you want to stand as a remnant in these last days, I want you to share this video with everyone you know. Let the world know that Bible Mysteries Africa is uncovering the truth. Type "I am the remnant" in the comments if you are standing with God. God bless you, and stay tuned for the next revelation. In the depths of this divine vision, I looked again and beheld the fountains of the great deep erupting upon the floor of that vast enclosure, causing the waters to rise and swell with a violent, unstoppable force. The entire enclosure began to fill, inch by inch, until every corner was entirely submerged under the weight of the deluge. As the water deepened, a heavy darkness and a thick mist descended upon the world, swallowing the light. The water crested high above the enclosure's height and began to overflow, covering the earth beneath like a funeral shroud. I watched with a heavy heart as all the cattle within the enclosure were gathered together, fighting for breath, only to be consumed by the rising tides. They perished within those watery depths, meeting a silent and cold end. Yet amidst the chaos, the vessel remained afloat, riding the waves of judgment, while the oxen, the elephants, the camels, and the asses, all the creatures of pride and monstrous birth, sank beneath the surface, disappearing from sight as they met their final doom. As the vision shifted, I saw the torrents finally recede from the towering roof of the heavens, revealing the scarred surface of the earth once more. Great chasms were filled, and new abysses opened up to receive the remains of the flood. The waters drained into these new depths, making the dry land visible again. The vessel, having fulfilled its purpose, settled firmly on solid ground as the darkness receded and a new fresh light emerged to greet the world. Then the white bull, who had been transformed into a man, emerged from the vessel along with the 3 bulls who had accompanied him through the storm. One was white like him, another was blood red, and the last was black. The first white bull soon departed from them. leaving the new world to his successors. From these bulls, a new era began as they started to create the beasts of the field and the birds of the air, leading to the emergence of diverse species: lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boars, foxes, squirrels, swine, falcons, vultures, kites, eagles, and ravens. Among this wild assembly, a new white bull was born, a symbol of purity in a wild land. Conflict soon arose among these many creatures, but the newly born white bull fathered a wild ass and another white bull. From this lineage, the wild asses multiplied across the plains. Then the bull born from the first white bull sired a black wild boar and a white sheep. While the wild boar produced many offspring that roamed the earth, the sheep gave birth to 12 lambs, a sacred number for a sacred purpose. As these 12 lambs grew, a time of trial began. One was given over to the wild asses, who then passed it to the wolves. This sheep matured in the midst of the wolves, learning to survive in the shadow of the predator. Eventually, the Lord of the sheep gathered the 11 remaining lambs and brought them to live and graze among the wolves as well. The flocks began to multiply, growing numerous and strong, even in the face of danger. But the wolves, terrified by the increasing number of the sheep, began to oppress them fiercely. They destroyed the young and cast them into a river of great waters, seeking to drown the future of the flock. The sheep cried out in staggering anguish over their lost young and pleaded with their Lord for deliverance. One sheep, having escaped the clutches of the wolves, fled to the wild asses for refuge. I witnessed the sheep's lament and their fervent, tearful pleas to their Lord, who finally descended from his exalted dwelling in response to their suffering. He called the sheep that had escaped and instructed it to go back to warn the wolves and command them not to harm his flock. Following the Lord's command, the sheep went to the wolves, accompanied by another faithful sheep. Together they entered the assembly of the predators and admonished them to cease their attacks. Despite this divine warning, the wolves continued to oppress the sheep with all their might, causing a great cry of distress to rise to the heavens. Then the Lord came to the sheep personally, and a great battle began. The sheep fought back against their oppressors. The wolves began to lament as their power faded, and the cries of the sheep finally ceased. I observed as the sheep left the wolves behind, but the wolves, blinded by their own rage, pursued them with relentless blind vigor. The Lord of the sheep led them personally, his presence radiant, awe-inspiring, and majestic beyond words. All the sheep followed him with unwavering faith, their faces illuminated by the glory that emanated from him. The wolves chased them until they reached the shores of a vast, formidable sea. At that moment, the sea parted, standing as towering walls of water on either side. Their Lord guided them through the path in the deep, placing himself as a shield between the sheep and the wolves. As the wolves, blinded and unable to see the sheep, ventured into the sea in their pursuit, they followed them into the very midst of the waters. But when the wolves caught sight of the Lord of the sheep in his full power, they turned in terror to flee from his formidable presence. It was too late. The sea gathered itself and returned to its original state. The waters surged and rose, ultimately engulfing the wolves. I witnessed the dreadful scene as every wolf that had pursued the sheep was drowned, perishing in the swelling sea. The sheep, however, escaped the watery deluge and ventured into a barren wilderness, a land devoid of water and sustenance. In this desolate place, their eyes were truly open to their surroundings and their dependence on the divine. I observed the Lord of the sheep tenderly pasturing them, providing both water from the rock and grass from the dust, while the leading sheep guided their steps. This leading sheep ascended to the peak of a towering rock to meet with the Lord and was sent back to the flock with holy instructions. I saw the Lord of the sheep standing before them, his appearance majestic, fearsome, and awe-inspiring. The sight of him instilled a profound fear in the sheep. They trembled and quaked in his holy presence, crying out to the leading sheep, "We cannot endure the sight of our Lord, nor stand before his glory." The leading sheep climbed again to the top of the rock to intercede, but in its absence, the sheep began to lose their way. They wandered from the path, though they remained tragically unaware of their own deviation. The Lord of the sheep grew exceedingly wrathful with their unfaithfulness. The leading sheep, sensing the divine anger, descended from the rock and found the majority of the flock blinded and strayed. Upon encountering their leader, the sheep trembled in fear and longed to return to their safe pastures. The leading sheep gathered the few who remained faithful and went to those who had wandered. It began to cull the wayward and instill a holy fear in them, leading the strays back to the fold. In the vision, I saw the leading sheep transform into a man who constructed a grand house for the Lord of the sheep, placing all the sheep within its protection. I saw how the sheep thrived until the leading sheep, who had become a man, eventually fell asleep. The grand sheep perished, and smaller ones rose in their stead, leading the flock to new pastures and flowing streams. The leaders continued to rise and fall, and I witnessed the sheep arrive in a beautiful, lush land where they thrived in peace. Yet history repeated itself. At times their vision was clear, and at other times it was obscured by pride, until a new sheep arose to restore their sight. They faced dogs, foxes, and wild boars, but the Lord of the sheep always raised a ram to lead them, fighting fiercely against every predator, until the flock was secure once more. In the unfolding of the celestial vision, the first ram, once a mighty protector, found himself in a desperate struggle, pursuing a second ram that had risen in the midst of the flock. But the second ram, gripped by a sudden and overwhelming fear, fled from the confrontation. As the power of the first ram waned, the dogs of the field, those ancient enemies of the fold, seized their opportunity, overpowering and bringing him down to the dust. In the wake of this fallen leader, the second ram was compelled to take charge, and under his renewed strength, the sheep began to multiply and grow. The predators that once stalked the perimeter now fled in terror before the ram's burgeoning might. He defeated the wild beasts with such finality that they no longer held any power over the sheep, and a season of relative peace settled upon the land. The ram lived to father many sheep, fulfilling his days before eventually falling into the long sleep of his ancestors. In his place, a young and vibrant sheep succeeded him, becoming the new ram and the leader of the people. It was during this era that the house of the sheep grew large and expansive, a testament to their prosperity. A towering structure, grand and imposing, was erected for the Lord of the sheep. Though the house itself was low and humble in its design, it was overshadowed by this magnificent tower where the Lord took his residence, and the sheep meticulously provided a full and bountiful table before him, honoring the source of their protection. Yet, despite this period of glory, the heart of the flock grew cold. I watched with sorrow as the sheep once again began to stray, forsaking the sanctuary of their house and the sanctity of the tower. The Lord of the sheep, in his mercy, sent emissaries from among their own kind to warn them of the coming darkness, but the sheep had become violent and rebellious. They turned upon the messengers and slew them without mercy. One lone emissary survived the slaughter, crying out over the wayward flock with a voice of lamentation, but the Lord reached down and saved him, bringing him to dwell in safety far from the carnage. Many other sheep were sent to testify and mourn over the state of the flock, but the people had abandoned the Lord's house completely. Their spiritual eyes were blinded by their own pride, and as they invited their own ruin, the Lord wrought a great slaughter among them. He finally withdrew his hand of protection and delivered the sheep into the hands of ravenous lions, tigers, wolves, hyenas, and foxes. The wild beasts tore the sheep to pieces, and the Lord abandoned the house and the tower, leaving the flock at the absolute mercy of the wilderness. They were ravaged and devoured, until the fields were stained with their loss. In my distress, I cried out with all the strength of my soul, pleading with the Lord to intervene, but he remained unmoved. He watched the devastation unfold, allowing the sheep to be plundered as a consequence of their own defiance. Then the Lord summoned 70 shepherds and handed the remaining sheep over to them. He gave a strict command: "Each of you shall tend to the sheep in your appointed time. I will give you a specific number to destroy according to my judgment, but you must not exceed what I have ordered." He entrusted the flock to their care, but he also called upon a celestial observer, a scribe of the heavens, and said, "Watch closely. Observe everything these shepherds do. They will surely destroy more than I have commanded. Record every excess, every act of reckless violence, and every sheep that falls by their own wicked will. Document the wrongdoings of each shepherd, But do not reveal your presence to them. Do not warn them or speak to them. Simply write down the full account and present it to me." In the time that followed, the shepherds began their work, but they were filled with cruelty. They slaughtered far more than was decreed, handing the sheep over to lions and wild boars to be feasted upon. They even set fire to the sacred tower and brought the house of the sheep crashing down into rubble. I wept bitterly as I gazed upon the ruins, for the sanctuary was gone, and the sheep were scattered like dust in the wind. The shepherds continued their betrayal, surrendering the flock to the beasts, while the observer faithfully recorded every name and every transgression in his book. When the time was right, the observer brought the record before the Lord of the sheep. Every act of destruction was laid bare, and the Lord read the account, sealed it, and set it aside for the final day of reckoning. I continued to watch as the cycle of shepherds continued for 12 more hours of vision. In that time, a small remnant of 3 sheep turned back toward the ruins and began to rebuild. They restored the high tower and set a table before it. But the bread they offered was defiled and impure, reflecting the corruption that still lingered in their hearts. The eyes of the sheep and the eyes of their shepherds remained blinded, and the flock continued to be trampled and devoured. The Lord remained silent as his sheep mingled with the wild beasts, and the shepherds made no effort to save them from their fate. Once again, the celestial scribe took the book of transgressions and stood before the Lord of the sheep, pleading earnestly on behalf of the suffering flock and testifying against the cruelty of the shepherds. The Lord accepted the book and placed it beside him as the vision moved toward its climax. I saw 35 more shepherds fulfill their terms, followed by others, until the sky darkened and a new horror descended. Flocks of predatory birds, eagles, vultures, and ravens swung down from the heavens. Led by the eagles, they began a merciless assault, tearing at the flesh of the sheep and gouging out their eyes. The sheep cried out in staggering agony as they were devoured alive. I watched as the birds left nothing but bare bones, which eventually crumbled into the earth. But amidst this total desolation, new lambs were born to the white sheep. Their eyes were opened to the truth, and they began to cry out to the elders of the flock, pleading for them to wake up. But the older sheep were deaf and blind, caught in a stupor of tradition and sin. I saw the ravens seize one lamb and dash it to the ground, but despite the violence, horns began to grow upon the young lambs. One sheep sprouted a great and mighty horn, and its vision was restored in full. It cried out to the others, and finally the rams heard the call and rushed toward the one with the great horn. Even then, the eagles and ravens redoubled their attack, seeking to shatter the ram's horn and silence the voice of truth. But as the ram fought with the desperation of the holy, the celestial scribe descended to its aid, revealing the records of heaven and standing as its salvation against the gathering darkness. In the final, gripping moments of this celestial revelation, the rams of the flock cried out in a sorrow so deep it shook the heavens, their voices laden with the weight of centuries of oppression. The ravens, those dark harbingers of malice, were desperate to overpower the chosen ram. They fought with a fierce demonic energy, focused entirely on shattering its mighty horn. Yet despite their numbers and their cruelty, they possessed no strength capable of defeating the divine purpose anchored within that ram. I watched as the wicked shepherds, along with the predatory eagles, vultures, and kites, screamed for the ravens to finish the task, to break the last vestige of the sheep's defense. They joined forces in a violent, chaotic struggle, but the ram fought back with a desperation born of faith, crying out to the skies for deliverance. And then, in the blink of an eye, the man who had been recording the names and the sins of the shepherds descended from the very presence of the Lord of the sheep. His arrival was the ram's salvation, for he revealed the heavenly record, proving that the time of the oppressors had reached its limit. At last the Lord of the sheep appeared in all his majesty, his wrath burning like an unquenchable fire that consumed the horizon. Upon seeing the Almighty, the entire assembly of evil, the shepherds, the ravenous beasts, and the predatory birds, were seized by a paralyzing terror. They scrambled in a frantic attempt to escape his holy gaze, but they were cast into his shadow, swallowed by a fear that dismantled their pride. The eagles, vultures, ravens, and kites were gathered for their final reckoning, and even the sheep who had once strayed into the fields of the enemy were brought forth, The man who had written the book stepped forward and opened the sealed scrolls, presenting the staggering record of the 12 last shepherds. They had wrought a destruction so thorough and so cruel that it surpassed the wickedness of all who came before them. When the Lord of the Sheep looked upon these records, he was filled with a holy, righteous fury that demanded immediate justice. With a movement that echoed through eternity, the Lord took his staff of wrath in his hand and struck the earth with a mighty blow. The ground groaned and split open, forming a vast gaping maw. In that moment, all the beasts of the field and the birds of the heavens that had tormented, gouged, and devoured the sheep were swallowed whole by the earth. The ground closed upon them with a final, echoing thud, sealing their doom forever. Then a great gleaming sword was given to the sheep, the very ones who had once been victims. With this divine weapon, they rose in a surge of holy vengeance against the remaining beasts of the field. The predators who had once laughed at the sheep's cries now fled in absolute panic, but none could escape the justice that had finally arrived. In the land that was now transformed into a realm of peace, a magnificent towering throne was erected, and the Lord of the Sheep seated himself upon it, radiating a light that restored all things. The man who kept the records brought out the final sealed scrolls and opened them before the Lord. 7 men, clothed in garments of pure white, were called forth and commanded to bring the fallen stars, those angelic beings whose hidden sins were like the impurities of horses. They were brought before the throne, trembling in their guilt as they faced the King of Glory. Then the Lord turned his gaze toward the man with the book and commanded him to bring the 70 shepherds to whom he had entrusted the flock, those who had willfully exceeded his commands and slaughtered his people. They were all bound in unbreakable chains and stood before the Lord, their faces pale with the realization of their eternal damnation. Judgment was passed first upon the stars. They were found guilty and cast into a blazing abyss filled with unrelenting pillars of fire. The 70 shepherds followed, hurled into the same fiery depth, their legacy of cruelty erased by the flames. As the vision continued, the earth opened yet again, revealing a second abyss of fire, even deeper than the first. The blinded sheep, those who had willfully turned away from the light, were brought to the edge. They too were judged and found guilty, cast one by one into the flames until nothing remained of their rebellion but ashes. This abyss lay to the right of the house of the sheep, a permanent reminder of the cost of apostasy. I watched in horror as the fire consumed them, but then the scene transformed. The old house, the one that had sheltered the sheep through their trials, was folded up. Its pillars and ornaments were carried away to a distant land in the south. In its place, a new house appeared, greater, grander, and more magnificent than anything the world had ever seen. Its pillars were stronger than the mountains, and its decorations were made of the very light of heaven. All the sheep that had remained faithful were gathered into this new sanctuary. I saw the beasts of the earth and the birds of the sky, those who had survived the judgment, bowing in absolute submission to the sheep. They brought supplications and obeyed the flock in all things, for the order of the world had been restored. The Lord of the Sheep rejoiced with an overwhelming joy, for his family was finally home. The 3 men in white, who had once guided me, appeared again and lifted me up, placing me in the midst of the sheep, just as the era of peace began. The sheep were now clothed in wool as white as snow, abundant and clean. I watched as the sword of vengeance was taken back and sealed before the Lord, for it was no longer needed. The eyes of every sheep were opened. The blindness was gone, and they beheld the goodness of God with perfect clarity. In the midst of this vast, spacious house, a white bull was born with large, glorious horns. All creatures feared him and sought his favor. I watched as the generations of the sheep were transformed until they all became white bulls, and the first among them became a mighty leader with great black horns. The Lord rejoiced over them all. When I finally awoke, my face was drenched in tears. I had seen the beginning and the end, the judgment and the restoration. I wept for the weight of human history and the fate of the soul, for everything I saw was true and would surely come to pass. My dear brothers and sisters in Nigeria and across Africa, this is the destiny of those who stay faithful. If you want to be part of the new house and stand among the righteous in the day of judgment, you must stay connected to the truth. Bible Mysteries Africa is dedicated to bringing you these deep revelations from the ancient scrolls. Do not let your spirit be blinded. Smash that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a word of God's hidden wisdom. Like this video and share it with your family. Let us prepare our people for what is to come. Type "I choose righteousness" in the comments if you are ready to walk with the Lord. God bless you.